How's it going, everyone? Welcome to 2023, and today we're doing a video on how to build a computer and what used versus new parts you should and should not get. Now, buying used PC components is totally fine for some, and you can save a lot of money. First, I'm going to talk about the biggest component that you should avoid buying used, and this is your hard drive. Whether that's an SSD or a standard mechanical drive, you should really just buy this new, as they're so cheap new anyways these days. You're not really gonna save much going used, and if you do go used, it's hard to tell how much runtime those drives have actually seen, and they could be near the end of their life. Hard drives, also specifically mechanical ones, have a ton of moving parts inside, so just the shipping to your house, if it's from someone on eBay or Craigslist and they don't properly package it, it could get damaged in transit. So to avoid losing any data on your computer, especially if it's precious files like your personal photos or videos, I would go ahead and get a new hard drive here. Now, a component that I would say you can save a lot of money on and get used is your CPU. Now, a CPU itself doesn't really have any moving parts in it, and they're all built pretty solid. The main thing you need to check with this, if you do get it used, is see if you can find out if it has been overclocked, and more specifically overvolted. If the CPU has been running at a high voltage for a long time, it might degrade its life a bit, but CPUs in general hold up their performance over time very, very well. The only other thing to really check is the bottom pins. Make sure none of the pins are bent or messed up or corroded, and you should be good to go and save a pretty penny on your CPU's purchase. Alongside this, you can also save money getting a CPU cooler used. I would just avoid going with AIO liquid coolers, because over time all the fittings and the bending of the pipes can make them crack and eventually leak. But if it is just a standard air cooler, you might need a new fan every now and then, but those are cheap enough. I would go ahead and go used. You can save a lot of money on those as well. One thing you don't want to try to save money on, though, is the motherboard. Motherboards not only are the first part usually to fail in a computer, but they're the hardest part to diagnose because there's so many other smaller parts on a motherboard. So if you get a motherboard used, it might be a good deal, but you don't know if even a single one of those capacitors got hit during shipping or maybe just burned out. And unless you have the tools to actually properly diagnose this, it's going to be very difficult yourself to fix it. Now, where you can save a lot of money is on your graphics card. Graphics cards can be one of the most expensive parts of your computer, and buying this used can save you a ton of money. Graphics cards are pretty hard to damage themselves, as most of them are completely covered with a cooler and a backplate, so you don't have to be too worried about them getting physically damaged. But one thing you do have to be careful of is if they were ever used for mining, and that is crypto mining, because if they were ever used in a giant mining farm, they could have burned out their life a lot faster than a normal card would have. So you could be seeing this card at the very end of its life, and that's why it's such a good deal. Look at their past listings. If they listed a ton of the same card, it is likely that they had a farm or they had a series of cards they were using to mine, and now they're dumping them on the market, and I would avoid this seller. Another component you can go ahead and pull the trigger on getting used is your RAM. There's only one thing to look out for really with RAM, and is the bottom set of pins. Just make sure if there's a picture, they're not scratched up or cracked in any way, and you should be good to go, because there's no moving parts on RAM, so it's pretty hard to actually damage them. And as long as it says it's just used and not renewed or refurbished, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Now, power supplies are a different story. You can technically go used on these as long as it is a one, good power supply manufacturer, and two, you know where it's been and how it was used. If this is from some eBay seller where you have no contact with them, this power supply could have been sitting outside in their garage exposed to the elements or moisture, and you would have no idea. So I'd recommend go ahead and get a brand new power supply from a good source, and spend a little extra money, I recommend, to get a higher wattage, so that way you can keep that power supply for more than one iteration of your computer. Now, next up, let's talk about some ways you can save some more money getting used parts, starting with your case. Now, as you see, the case just kind of sits there and usually doesn't get much action, so I doubt there's much wrong with it if it is used. Cases also don't really have many moving parts besides the fans, but if a fan goes out, you can replace those quite inexpensively as well. So I'd recommend go ahead and, if you can, find the case that you wanted on a used market, and you can save a decent amount of money there. Another place you can save a ton of money is on your monitors, especially if you have a triple monitor setup like me. You don't need to get these new. Monitors, as long as they don't have any dead pixels, should be totally fine used. Now, a way you can check for dead pixels, or you can ask the seller, is to bring up an image of the monitor with just a white screen, a white background, and just a black background. This makes it super easy to see if any pixels are either dead or dimmed or dying. So you can see if the monitor has had too much use, or maybe it was just a defective product. But make sure you do that just so you don't get a product that comes with dead pixels. And that is it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed or found this useful, go ahead and leave a like below, and leave a comment for any kind of situations you might have had in the past. I'm just kind of curious how you've gone with buying used parts. I'll see you guys in the next video.